Hi, I'm Leo. I go by STFN online, and today we're gonna break down my song called Can't Lose. We're gonna go through my Logic session and look into every nook and cranny of what it took to produce this song, as well as the choices I made along the way. Enjoy! Alright, here we are. What should we start off with? There's so much to go through. I think we should start off with the kind of core element of the song, really. And it's a bit in the background, really, but it's this thing. And the full length sample sounds like this. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. And it gets even weirder when I put a vocoder on it. And so I've linked this to Audio 31, which is this sample then. Now, you might be wondering how I got this sample, and to tell you the truth, the song sounded completely different from the start. It was more of a Ed Sheeran vibe instead of a 21 Pilots vibe, but what I did is I took the verse and I put the verse into a plugin called Beat Breaker, and then with a setting called Hold Back, it kind of chops up the audio and makes it unrecognizable. And then on top of that, I put some EQ, some little alter boy, and some reverb, and without it, it sounds like this. And then with some EQ, little alter boy, and reverb, with just some formant shift, pitch, and roughly 50-50 mix of the two. And that goes through the whole song, and I kind of weave it in wherever I feel like it fits. You can see here every 4 bars it comes in when there's a break in the vocal to not overwhelm the listener, but it's also here way in the background on a separate track where I've got some different effects on it, and it sounds a bit different, but it's more suited for the background. Yeah, so it's not kind of as obnoxious as this in the sound design element, so that it fits more into the background, and you can have it as a rhythmic element. Yeah, so that's that sample, and it really all started from this sample, which is pretty fun. Now, this intro, which I can play you. Again, this vocal is from a previous version of the song, and although the meaning of the song didn't really change, I definitely changed the genre and the vibe of the song. And so I put it in here in the beginning and chopped it up. Do everything. Along with some scratches, vinyl scratches, to kind of mimic me on the DJ booth, basically just scratching, along with some of this in the background. It's just me with heavy autotune humming, panned left and right hard, with some reverb, my favorite reverb, Raum. And it does this thing sometimes where you pop it up and it looks like you're having a heart attack, but you're not. It's just a bug of the plugin. Anyways, let's go through the drum section. Okay, so not all of the drums is in the drum bus for this track, since it messed with the mix too much. So I decided to put some things in the track stack with the drum bus and some things outside of it, and then mix it all together. So this is actually a Logic drummer. I was against using it for a long time, but for simple things, it's so handy, and you get a great sound out of it. And so this is just a simple pattern, and it lies underneath the drums, just basically supporting it and giving some room to the drums. And it's very well sampled, so it sounds like a real drummer in a real room, which is what I wanted to achieve. Now, when you layer my samples, you instantly get more of a quality sounds. So that's basically the drums. Now there's some toms and hi-hats and crashes outside of the drum bus as well, and this is one, and it fits in so well with the kick. And then you do the fills with the toms. I do the fills with the toms, and I actually add them into kind of the second part of the first verse here, as well as the second verse actually, to kind of break up the rhythm and the pattern a bit, to not make it too much of the same thing. And they're very distorted as well, which I like and I thought fit for this track. When I do the fills in my drum programming, I like to add one of my snares or both of my snares bounced out together to a sampler, often Logic's own built-in one like I've got here, and program fills and fast snare rolls that way, because it makes it so much easier, I think. And it may not sound very good on its own, but it makes it so much easier, and you can control the velocity as well. That is basically it with the drums. My drum bus, same as my last song really, with a few tweaks, but for those of you that didn't watch that video, here it is again. Also an equalizer, bit of top end controlling the low end, supercharger adds a bit of thump, Pultec boost certain frequencies, and really it's just a preset with some tweaking. Heatwave is a saturation plugin, adds a bit of grit. Filter Freak, drum enhancer, again enhances low end. Mix loudener, this is one of my new favorite things to play with. It enhances certain frequencies to make something louder without actually increasing in decibels, which makes limiting less of a nightmare. And a limiter, of course, so that what does need to be limited gets limited before it hits the mastering limiter, so to speak. And so it takes a bit of the load off the master limiter. And then some reverb just to kind of match the this one. And what else? Oh yeah, some automations. I did automate some send, yeah, I believe, to the mix loudener. And so here in the first verse, it's at a certain volume. Of course, you know, it needs to be a bit louder to account for all the new elements that I was adding. Then in the kind of weird spacey bit, you go down in volume as well. Okay, cool. Yeah, for the drum beat, I just really wanted to keep a plain drum beat because so much is happening in the song. I really just wanted it to be like, just keep chugging along with the occasional fill. And this one that kind of catches you off guard. I like to play with audio files like this. Really, a lot of the time, since I have played drums, I like to think that I know what I'm doing to some extent, but really, it's so much easier when you have the audio files right in front of you and you can see them. Either if you do it in MIDI or if you do it like me, you can see the grid. It's literally a matter of just taking these two, stretching them, doing this. Oh, maybe it needs to be a bit like that or that. And oh, okay, maybe that one is there. And then if it doesn't sound good, guess what? You can just change your mind and now you're back. It's really easy to do it that way. You do need to listen through that 1 second clip over and over again until you think you've got it. But if you get a good drum fill out of it, I say it's worth it. Okay, bass. Again, like my last song, I think I used the same sound. I did. Classic bass. It's a very simple bass, which I like because then I can shape the sound how I want and fit it to the track. So it sounds like this. Yeah, then I added a compressor, side chaining it to the kick to make the kick shine through. Some distortion by Decapitator, Sound Toys, very good distortion. Adds a bit of thickness and grit and bass to it. Helps cut through the mix very well. Then some EQ. Basically did the same thing to the sub bass. And the sub bass is from Nexus. It's a basic sine wave for anyone who's wondering. Here are some elements that are buried in the background that adds some rhythm, but you don't really pick up on it. It just adds that downbeat. It's Jacob Collier's own audience choir. It's very good for stabby vocals. I do believe that I layered it later on. This is a, can't pronounce this, but Yang Druing. I believe it is a Asian instrument that they made a virtual instrument of in Contact, which is free, by the way. this specific virtual instrument. The only thing that made it into this version that was in the previous version, that was kind of more the Ed Sheeran way, was this guitar part. And for this one, I just recorded on my guitar. And I could have done a better job of getting a clearer sound. But then you add some gate to eliminate the noise in between the transients, and then an amp, and then some EQ. And I do believe I did the same to these ones. No, I didn't. There's just some EQ, compression, and round, of course. And then 2 different takes that I panned left and right. And you can't just copy the audio. It doesn't work. You get phasing issues then. You can try to format shift stuff, but it's easier to just record it twice. This is just a layer of this guitar. Just a stabby synth I found in Nexus, of course. What else? Beach Bar. Probably played a bit with the delay and reverb to make it less EDM-like. And here we've probably got some pads and layers to add not only rhythm, but harmonic information into the last chorus. Bit annoying, honestly, but I guess it sounds good in the grand scheme of things. Do believe they're both from Nexus. It sounds like it. Yeah, very EDM. All right, when I was mixing, I discovered that around 570 hertz, I needed to cut a lot of the frequencies around there in both of these because they were interfering with my vocals. And so I just scooped that out, literally, and it made the mix so much clearer. And now it's more in the high end. I also put some spread light on it. This is a imaging plugin that is free from Yum Audio. It's very good. Makes it very spacious and wide. In the second verse and the weird spacey part, before the second verse, I have got some strings, and I do believe they're from Logic's own strings. Oh, and some horns as well. And they're on the setting where you've got expressive medium, meaning they kind of swell towards the end of the note, which is how you get that sound. Here, this says sub bass, but it's not. It's a choir thing, I think. Yeah, it adds dramatic effect, but it's from Jacob Collier's own choir as well. I've just bounced it out and adjusted the fade, and it again pops up as a swell kind of, but also in between the vocals when there's no vocals. And it's all about contrast for me. In every 48 bars, something new needs to be happening. Otherwise, it's not really a compelling arrangement, in my opinion. Now, that can vary how much you want to change, and it could be another element added or something taken away, or, you know, more drastic changes like a section change. But something new needs to be happening. Otherwise, people are just not going to find it compelling, I think. All right. I really went crazy with the vocal effects on this song. I was inspired by 21 Pilots. And so in the vocal section, you've got a lot of natural vocals, but also some very unnatural vocals. And so here, for example, I've automated the send to Little Altar Boy, if I can find it. Yeah, here, where you've got some natural vocals and then some phrases and words are automated to have the Little Altar Boy kind of demon sound to it.
Climbing the rope while I'm young, spitting the lyrics to make your ears go drunk, and
longer phrases like this.
Done, sitting on the rhythm and I've only just begun, keeping the flow go.
Yeah, so that's fun. It also happens in the second verse. And you can see here in the verse that all of these different colors are different takes. And that is how I record these fast parts, because I would run out of breath so fast if I did this as one take. And then in the background, we've got some ad-libs. Just way in the background, add some contrast. That is the choir from earlier, but pitched down 12 semitones. Yeah, let's dive into the main vocal then, I guess. For the main vocal, there's a lot of stuff going on first of all, there's a track stack encompassing all of the chorus vocals. So that's the main vocal, the two panned vocals, the background vocals, the falsetto robot, the Shure SM7B mic that I'm talking into now, background vocals, robot, and also the vocal chops. And so that encompasses all of that. On top of that, I've put some fresh air, some multiband compressing, de-essing through a multiband compressor, a all-around compressor to glue everything together, some ozone again to add some certain frequencies with more precision, and some round, but on the cosmic setting this time for a shorter reverb. So this is the main vocal.
You can't lose as long as you keep your head.
And then these are the panned vocals. And again, I've added on these background vocals that little alter boy effect where you get that demon sound almost. So this is what they sound like individually.
You can't lose as long as you keep your head cool. Feed that fire with the right fuel.
And these are all put through vocal line, but I intentionally messed up the vocal line thing. So I put on different settings where you can hear, especially in these next background vocals, it's gonna sound robot-y and wrong. It's on pitch, but it's, very robot-like. Intentionally, that is, I promise. So I intentionally put the wrong settings in vocal line, which is a vocal aligning plugin, which saves so much time. I can pull it up for you guys here, actually. So it looks like this, but you have to open Logic in a mode called Rosetta for it to actually work the way it's supposed to. You're supposed to have a capture button right here, but you don't, because I'm not in Rosetta at the moment, because I don't need to vocal align stuff. But you essentially click the guide track that's your perfect vocal take, and you click capture, and then a yellow audio file shows up here. Then you click the background vocal that you want to align time-wise and or pitch-wise to the guide vocal, the perfect vocal take. And you click capture, and then a orange audio file shows up here, and then an output, and you can align, match timing, match pitch, and stuff like that. And then you can put it to the nearest octave and so on. But since I didn't do that, I put it on absolute. It sounds very robotic like this.
You can't lose as long as you keep your head cool. Feel that fire with the right fuel.
It just sounds wrong, but altogether, I was surprised. I was so surprised. I did not know that this was going to happen, but it sounded like this.
You can't lose as long as you keep your head cool.
And I just fell in love with the sound of it, so I kept it in. And all of this runs on my vocal chain. For these three, I have it on, but for these, I have bounced it out because otherwise it takes up too much usage on my audio interface. So, for the main vocal, auto-tune, EQ, de-esser, compression, EQ, more compression, multiband compression, fresh air. It's an EQ plugin really, but it's automated to add high end to your audio file, and some reverb. Now that's just my vocal chain, and obviously it goes into the track stack, which adds more effects and stuff on it, and then is run into the master chain, which adds more stuff to it. So I really try to not change the sound more than 5% on every plugin, because it might look like a lot, but it only adds up to 100%. Then I bounced everything out and did vocal cuts. So literally a bounced out version with some effects on it, and it sounds like this. Yeah. Lots of effects on it, and disregard what I said earlier about putting too much on it. When it comes to vocal chops and effects and stuff like this, you can never put too much on it. The more the better, really. I decided to use some platinum reverb on it. This is one of my old favorite reverbs. It's a hidden feature in Logic, really. You need to hold down Command and click here. Then you're going to see a tab called Legacy, and only then can you access the platinum verb, which looks like this. And then I usually go for the church preset and then tweak as needed. But yeah, it's a great plugin if you don't want to spend tons of money on paid reverbs. RAM, also free. So, and also on these vocal chops, some of these are pitched. So you can see here I've automated the little altar boy one to be on normal pitch here and then pitch down when it comes to this last one. I've also automated it this way with the reverb to kind of create a tail after the vocal chop. But if I did this, it wouldn't have as much of a tail. And now it kind of lingers more. So that's that. Along with the chorus vocals, I do have a layer of synths that follow the same melody. That's just to enforce the melody and also make it have that sort of robotic synth sound to the vocals, but layered underneath. And it sounds like this. And along with the vocals, it sounds like this.
You can't lose as long as you keep your head cool.
And I came to think of it once I had these robotic background vocals. Let's see, what's this? Oh yeah, this is the tremolo kind of impact thing. And so this is another one of the vocal chops that I bounced out again and put on a different track. Then gained it a bit, I think, yep. Put some decapitator on it, but a different style. Added some tremolo, but I think I automated the tremolo. Yeah, so you've just got the initial transient so that you can kind of hear me saying you, and then the tremolo starts working, essentially. So you've got it like this. And in this part, I do kind of make a second intro, if you will, with these ones. And oh yeah, one more thing. The sound you hear in the intro and also this part on my vocals is made in a very fun way. So I do have the same vocal chain that I showed you earlier on this, but I bounce it out and then I put some extra effects on it. So this one is a plugin called Vinyl from Isotope, and it's pretty self-explanatory. It makes it sound like vinyl, and it's pretty incredible actually. So if I turn it off, I turn all the other stuff off as well. It sounds like this.
Keep the flow going when I arrive, future seems bright, Emma.
Pretty modern vocal sound, but as soon as you turn it on, and you, especially when you set it to the older time frames, it sounds like this.
The flow going when I arrive, future seems bright, Emma.
Then you can set it to the 80s as well.
Future seems bright, Emma.
And then you can add some mechanical hiss and electrical and dust and scratch and warp, and now it's like,
future seems bright, Emma.
now it's really, really vinyl. But we don't want that. We just want the lo-fi kind of quality. And then some EQ, taking off most of the low end and most of the high end to really emphasize that bad quality. Then some RAUM, and then some de-essing around here, because doing all of this really emphasizes, and so you kind of have to counteract that in some ways. Also, another thing I do on most of my vocals is this reverb background thing that I send to a bus. So I put a RAUM reverb, a pretty big reverb, on a send to a bus, and after that reverb I put a compressor linked to the initial audio. So you can see that this is linked to audio 14 and this is audio 14. So it's ducked when the main vocal is live, but here when there's no sound from the main vocal, the reverb kind of takes more space and fills in the void, so to speak. So I do that on all my vocals, but the trick is you've got to do individual sends to the individual vocals unless you want them giving way to another vocal, as well as some light distortion on a send, but it's only a send, so you only send a bit of the signal through. In terms of mixing, wasn't that difficult. The trick was to get the vocals to pop, and the crux was these synths, really. As soon as I carved out around 1000 hertz here, it was so clear. It's just, frequencies are competing for space in your mix, and you gotta leave the proper space unless you want a bad mix. So what else? Let's go through the master chain. I put a OTT on here, a multiband up-down pressor. Although you got to be careful, because if you don't like put the depth to a lower percentage, you're gonna blow out your speakers with this one. It's, you gotta treat it carefully, because otherwise you're gonna change your sound very drastically. Some multi-band, I usually go for the basic 6-band punch, but for this one I decided to go with the basic 4-band. Some punch and leveling, yes, these are presets, but I do tweak them. Some light EQ, some very light fresh air. You got to be really careful when adding this to your master bus, because it can easily destroy everything. Initially had some supercharger here, but decided to take that off. Some limiting before the actual mastering plugin, where there is a limiter built in. So you kind of take the load of that limiter in the mastering plugin. Then Yulin loudness meter. This is just to monitor that you've got the right levels, and you want to be around -10, -12 for it to be loud enough on streaming platforms and so on. Thank you for watching. Maybe you found it useful. I will keep on doing these breakdowns for every single track I release.